You know, you've been an amazing addition to Telluride for our business, for our culture, and you know, tell us a little bit about what attracted you to our destination and why you're here.
I've always admired Telluride. It's the special, unique character of it, and in particular, the community. To me, it has a spirit and has a soul to it that we don't generally find in a lot of other mountain resort communities. You know, but I've always looked at it as a bit of a jewel, and just credit to the Mahoneys and Joe. I've learned through my career in the ski industry that you're only as good as your mountain. And Telluride truly has one of the best mountains, clearly in North America, but also a mountain that stands up to the other great resorts of the world. And with that as a platform, as Ron said during the film, I truly believe, and I'm convinced in my mind, that with the right finishing touches, both in the village as well as on the mountain, it truly can be the best resort in the world, and I think that is a completely accurate statement.
Thank you. We have a question here.
Hi, thank you. My name is Adrienne Christie, and I work at the Telluride Historical Museum, and I am also a ski instructor. And I would love to hear some history behind some of the names of the runs and how they came to be and why they are where they are. Hopefully they're kind of funny, and I'll have something good to tell my clients.
Are we going to start with Joint Pine, or?
Well, I can. Billy, obviously, he's the dude. But when we started in '71, one of the early concepts of the previous owner was to name the ski trails after card games. And Billy and I said, God, we got a lot of history here. And I would say that 80 to 85% of all the trails up there are named after things of historical significance of the mountain, either mining claims or that. So that was kind of an interesting transition right from the start, from card games to historic stuff. And then the last, I'll just mention one quick one, that Ron, when he came on, when we were building Prospect Basin, Telluride, the ladies of the evening were pretty famous. And we'd chosen early on that we were going to name all the runs in Prospect after the ladies of the evening. And then when we built the trails in 2000, Telluride had turned rather politically correct. And I was taking on what we talked about. You know, Kitty the bitch was not going to be a real good name. So we literally, there were some others. So they're all named after women, rightfully so, but we just kind of moderated the names. So that was a disappointment, wasn't it, Ron?
Yes, it was.
Billy, that we couldn't. I mean, I kind of like to have Kitty the bitch all figured out up there, but we didn't name her. And Senior could certainly, if he has, but it was all historical.
Do you want to talk about how they named some of the original ski trails?
Oh, I guess I can.
Well, have at it.
If I can remember. My mind is kind of getting old. Well, you know, some of the runs we didn't actually know what to call them. We called it, you know, the Smuggler and the Happy Thought. These were all mining claims. What was some of the others? You don't know.
Zulu Queen?
Zulu Queen. And
Happy Thought, Electric.
Misty Maiden, of course, that was after a gallon of red light district down there. Anyway, they was only after mining claims. You know, it just seemed to be appropriate because we were a mining community. And I can't remember all the names. I get kind of confused. Anymore.
How about Apex?
Apex, yeah, that's a.
Was that a mining claim?
Yep.
Where at?
Up on Ajax Mountain.
Okay, there you go.
But you know, another one that Billy named, which was pretty interesting, the Spiral Stairs. If you look at the mine up at Tomboy Basin, and Billy could say it, but there was a spiral stairs that took the people that lived at Tomboy Basin down into the mine workings. The spiral stairs. And Mr. Allred has a pretty good one that he named when he came on here, which is worthy, one of our great runs. You want to tell him how the old Camp Macon came about?
Yeah, my wife and I have a his and her family, and we got 7 kids. And each one of them came to me on their own and said, Dad, would you name a ski trail after me? And I said, well, what about your brothers and sisters? And they all said, except for one of them, said, oh yeah, we got to do that for them too. But one of them, I said, you know, when he came and asked if you could have a ski trail named after him, and I said, well, what about your brothers and sisters? Screw them. So we're taking a trip, and we're in the old Stapleton Airport in Denver, and I called them all together and I said, okay, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. I said, now, when we come back on this, from the end of this 2 weeks, you got to have a name that uses the first letter of your first name and into a word, and then we'll name that ski trail, and you're all in on that trail. Well, that was, in a way, a little bit of a mistake, because all they did was talk about that and argued and went back and forth and everything. But anyway, at the end of the day, the trail that they came up with, the name they came up with, was Camp Macon. And we were not going to change the trail. We were just going to, when we build a new one, and you can't name a trail Camp Macon. It's an intermediate or an easy trail. It's got to be a tough trail. So we waited until we got a tough trail, and that's, if any of you still ski that. I know this lady over here does, but it's a tough trail.
Dr. Lou Alaya.
I'd like to know if any of you remember.
I'd like to know if any of you remember what the original name of Misty Maiden was, because every time I get on 4, it comes to my mind.
First Love,
Right. And do you know why, Billy?
because the governor was Governor Love.
Jill told me that. And that was a great story. Thank you.
Adrian, thank you. Great question. Yes. Sir, actually, if you want to go up to the mic, I'm gonna hit this gentleman. You could be next. Thank you.
So I've been trying to find this out all season. Killer, where did Killer come from? Killer Slide.
Sacco, we named it. You were part of it.
You were part of it, Sacco. You should remember this more than anybody.
Oops.
Killer Khan.
No, you remember.
No, but it was Killer before that. It was Killer before we named
I
it.
don't think so.
Okay, thanks.
We Sacco, back in our avalanche days in '72, that's when we named it. We had some pretty good avalanches back there. So it was a patrol name, and I think you might have been part of it, but that was in '72. Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Sacco. Sir, at the
Not yet.
microphone.
Our risk managers told us, says, for God's sake, don't name it Killer. That's not good.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's a good name. So yeah, Henry is here. That's pretty neat, because I know I used to ski that. It was called Palmyra. But why Dead Burrow? That's what I was wondering.
It was a mining claim.
Okay.
Which one?
Dead Burrow. It was over by only about 2 in here. No, we had one called did you? Have you ever skied the Link? Your assignment, sir, is to ski the Link.
I'll get out my 7.
All right. Yeah, do it.
Looks like Durfee's walking up for a question as well. I'm going to jump in here. Ron, the ending there of that film when you say, we can be #1 in the world. I mean, that, and it's our destiny. And, that really resonates with all of us at TSG, certainly, because we see that potential. And, but, just how far are we from that reality?
Not very far. But there's a number of things that have to happen before we're in that league of being chosen for #1. And one of them, we got to expand the ski mountain. and to its fullest potential, because we're getting busier, and there's bottlenecks here and there from time to time. So, but we need to do that. We need to finish that mountain. And then, as I mentioned in the previous video, that we need to finish the Mountain Village. We've got these lots, they've been zoned for it forever, and we need to finish them off so we have the critical mass in the Mountain Village, which really has an enormous plus effect for the merchants and the restaurateurs and these are people that they're working hard, and they invested their fortune, and we owe it to them to do that, and we can do it. I mean, that's not going to be easy, but it can be done. There's no doubt about it. We've all talked about affordable or employee housing. We've got to find some new ways to meet that demand, because the amount of employee housing that we originally, when we were in the TRAPAC days in '79 and '80, and trying to figure out all this densities and whatnot, total misjudgment, and it was basically on my part, of how much employee housing we were going to need. And we need far more than what I had thought we were going to need. So, but we might as well just get at it, you know, get it over with. And I think we need to be, along the way, we need to think about, and it's not going to cost a lot of money, but we need to think about some of the children in our community that are growing up here, being born here, growing up here, that their parents are working in the back of restaurants in the kitchen, and they're mowing lawns, and their mother's cleaning houses, and they're performing hard work and good service for the rest of the community. But their children need more help to get advanced education. And that's going to be kind of one of my little projects that I want to work on, because we can help these people so easily if we just figure it all out. They deserve as much opportunity, and without education, it's a lot tougher road, and we ought to help them.
Nice. Thank you. Durfee, thank you.
I think it was, Billy, I think it was in the summer of '69 when Emile Allred came here, and you guys walked this mountain. And it was my understanding that his vision was really an Alpine vision. And he saw this terrain between us and Silverton as an opportunity that was very much of a European model. And I think about that as we learn more about climate change. And 100 years from now, ski areas in Colorado might be a very different kind of an animal. But it seems to me that even if we lose the bottom 500 feet of our mountain here, it becomes precarious. What is your feeling about expansion in that high alpine terrain? And what was it that you, and what was the nature of that conversation that you had with Emile in those days? Thank you.
Well, Emile and I talked about it. Of course, you know, he skied over there in the Alps and places like that. And our mountains are about the same as the Alps, maybe not quite as spectacular. But I gotta say one thing, Ron took him up there one time, looking at that, he broke his damn leg.
Yeah?
And he went to Silverton and met with the county commissioners, and those guys over there said, we don't want to be like Telluride. I bet they'd like to be like Telluride now, wouldn't you? because we tried to promote them to, you know, to help us develop the ski area clear over to Silverton, you know. And it was feasible. I even drew up a plan for it. We still got it someplace in the archives. But I'm kind of glad it didn't happen, I guess, because, you know, it would have been too big.
Yeah. Well, I want to add one thing to that story, because Johnny, you know, said, I don't know how to ski. It's basically true.
He's a sensitive man, too. You might.
Yeah. But when I first came here, it's true, I didn't know how to ski. But that first winter, and my wife didn't know how to ski, but we were going up on Saturdays and Sundays, and we were down in the beginner area, and we were trying to learn how to ski. But at the end of that first winter, I told these guys, I said, I want to go into the backcountry. I want to see what's back there. And even though I couldn't ski very good, I want to go. Well, I thought they would be a little sensitive to my situation, you know, but they, anyway, so we, at the end of the summer, there's a period of time, like maybe the last 2 weeks of May, when what happens in the high country, these basins, is what's called a boilerplate sets up. And what happens is it's really warm during the day and sunny, and it melts the top maybe 1/8 of an inch of snow, and you still got 4 or 5 feet of base. And then during the night, that freezes, that melting freezes. And so you get up early. We'd get up at 6:30 in the morning. We'd be up there with a helicopter and skiing all these basins, and you can just ski over the top of that without caving in. And it's almost like it's been groomed. And so we did that for three years, and we were mapping out that area back there, and there's some incredible skiing back there. There's no doubt about it. And we skied all the basins from Telluride to the Silverton-Ouray Highway, coming out at the top of what's the name of the pass? Red Mountain. And then we'd go about 5 miles to the south, and we'd come out down below. We were within 6 miles of Silverton, and we could have gone up another mountain and dropped right into Silverton. And so we were having a lot of fun. Billy always brought the lunches. I'll never forget these lunches, because when you go up there at 6 in the morning, you don't seem to eat breakfast, and boy, you get hungry, you know, real fast. But he always brought the same lunch, and it was the old Wonder Bread white bread, you know, with a piece of bologna in it. You'd eat that, and then your dessert was a Twinkie, and then you got a Grey Pet. But that was the best tasting food in the world, because you were so hungry. But yeah, we went through all of it. But at the end of the day, when it came time to put all this on a plan and go get governmental approvals, we were already having trouble with the community, and we were fighting to get Prospect Bowl and Gold Hill and those places. And that was a battle just to do that. And so at the time, we just made the decision that, God, let's get that, and maybe someday we'll, you know, when things change, maybe we'll go back and look at the other part. But it's incredible skiing. And but these guys, of course, these two right here, used to take me into the backcountry. I could ski green trails, one single green trails, but I would follow them, and they would never, ever, they laughed all the time, all the time. And I've always thought I'd get even with them, but I have never thought of how I was going to do that.
You know, Durfee, on those, there was about 7 basins. Chattanooga's that big flat place above Silverton. you could ski, and we could have done it with 7 lifts.
Yeah.
So I could tell about that, and I told Ron and Joyce that I photographed all that, never to be, so we're going to do a slideshow of everything from Bear Creek to Porphyry to Mineral, which would be pretty interesting. But one quick story. Ron and I, one April, ended up in Silverton. In April. Telluride was slow, Silverton was way slow. And we go into this seedy little place that was in Maine, the two of us. And there was a gal there, big mining kind of gal I was raised with. And she had big arms, and she had I remember she had barbed wire tattooed in her arm. And Ron said to her, he said, hey, listen, would you guys ever want to put a ski area over here in Silverton? You remember this. She goes, are you kidding me? There's no way we'd want a ski area. And furthermore, mister, as she scolded him, she said, those mountains are riddled with minings and holes. And if you put too many skiers on it, could collapse. Yeah, we had our bologna sandwich and got out of town.
We've got a question here from the audience. Sir, tell us your name and your question.
I'm Kevin. Hi. What was your favorite run, and did you guys have pond skimming back then?
I didn't hear that.
The question was, what's your favorite run, and did you do closing day pond skimming back then?
No.
So I can tell you my father's favorite ski run was Bushwhacker, and that's before it was ever cut, because when we were young and we used to hike up there, it was very open treed and it was safe, because the Mammoth we always had to be a little leery of, obviously, because it was an avalanche chute. And so I know that Dad and I used to enjoy skiing Bushwhacker the most. And there was no pond skiing, no, that was out. We used to, actually, that's not true. They're at the bottom of Lift 7. Did we not, Sacco, you know this better than me. I thought we did a pond thing at the bottom of Lift 7 at the end of the year, one year. Yeah, or a couple years, yeah.
It's the natural pond.
Yeah, it was, we didn't have snowmaking back then, it was melting and there was a big pond there, so it was pretty natural. We just skied across it and called it good.
Ron, the thing that I noticed that wasn't in the film tonight is the incredible political challenges that you had to deal with during all those years. It was not smooth sailing for a lot of it. The thing that I wonder here, looking at all 5 of you, especially Bill, and that is, I also believe the potential for this skier to be #1 in the world. Do you think the political environment here in the whole region supports that goal?
Well, look, if we went after it, we got to have all of our facts together, and we have to explain why we want to do it and why it's beneficial to this community. And we also are going to have to figure out that we're not going to go past the TRAPAC agreement on density. I mean, we got to leave, if we had to do that, if we had to go back into the community, the governments, and say, we need 5,000 more people zoned than what we have on the books right now. And we have plenty on the books to support us expanding, so we can, but it might be just like the early days when I was, kind of working, fighting those little battles one at a time. But if it's the right thing to do, we should do it. And if it's the right thing to do, we should not be afraid to argue with, the point with the community. And we should be able to sell them on it if it's the right thing to do. The only reason we've come this far is because there was many people in the earliest days. There was far more people opposed to what we wanted to do and they thought I was a village idiot, and it was never going to happen. But a lot of them tried to oppose it. But one by one, there was a lot of people that started thinking, maybe some of what he's doing is right. Maybe, and there was people supporting us. too. It's just that it was like, maybe there was, I think when I came to town, there was like 400 to 500 people in the total community. And there was maybe 300 were opposed to it, what we wanted to do. And a lot of them seemed to be very political about things. But it didn't matter because I thought it was the right thing to do. And I still do. I think what we've done is the right thing. And I think a lot of those people are still living here. And they have come up to me and said, you know, Ron, I'm glad you hung in there. So if it's the right thing to do, we gotta sell it to the community. That's for darn sure. And we can do it without expanding our zoning. We have enough zoning if we just finish it to handle anything we came up with. So you were here in part of those early days, so you know. And he was one of the 10 people that was supporting us. Yeah, no, there was a lot of people supporting us, but it was far more the other way initially. But I think we did the right thing. I really do.
Johnny, sorry, excuse me, go ahead, please.
Well, I was just going to add when you asked if it changed, because it was a bloodbath, but it doesn't matter. And what I would say, George, that I saw within the last week, that after many years of this, had to do with the Eldorado Mill. And 5 years ago, I think that there was a huge impetus to tear down the Eldorado Mill. For those you don't know, I was raised out there. I tell people I was raised back east, which I was, out of mine. But honest to God, segueing on that, there was a groundswell of people like I hadn't seen in 40 years. Granted, there was maybe 100, and I listened to the council, that they were saying, you know what, this mining in our history is worth saving. And I don't think 5 or 10 years ago we even heard that. So I think, personally, I think this community has really advanced in many areas because it's more economically sustainable because of festivals in summer. I mean, we're one of the most unique communities in Colorado, even back in the early days, Bill, when we were doing about a 60% winter sales tax and 40%. You know, I don't know what we are now, 50-50. I mean, it was the model, isn't it, Bill, of a lot of resorts have tried to do that. And so anyway, we had a ski resort, and that's, and I'll go back and I'll shut up, is when Ron, which I think is very operative, when I first met him, saying, you know, what do you think we can do? He didn't say, I think we can be the best ski resort. He said, I think we can be the best year-round resort in North America. And that's when I beckoned to be a concert pianist. But that's the same time that the Bluegrass Festival in the summers, I mean, I think Telluride even back in the 70s and 80s. And the ski company, Ron and Joyce, were funding money for festivals. And I'm going, what the hell are you doing? We need money up on the mountain. But it really lent itself to this overall community. Maybe too long of an answer, but I think things are really pretty positive in many areas now, my opinion.
Johnny, we started the film with the word sustainability, and you just used it again. And for us at the ski resort, you know, it really means, do we have the capital to replace lifts? Do we have the capital to improve the infrastructure with the restaurants? You know, we've got some risk here. I mean, it's other ski resorts that I've been a part of, the retail merchants are doing between $450 and $600 a square foot in revenue in a core village. Our merchants are doing between $250 and $300 a square foot, and I think that was part of the film. You know, but Mr. Jensen, I mean, what's your view on the future in terms of our growth and where we're going?
You know, I maybe want to go back to the previous question a little bit about how do you push this forward, and I think we're at a different stage in the life of Telluride, and the future is going to be much more about the experience than it is going to be about growth. You know, as the resort evolves and the experience improves, and you know, to the question, you know, I think about Telluride and I hear the stories. 20 years ago, everybody said, you can't, this mountain's no good, it's too steep, you can't ski it.
but the sport evolves, generational athleticism evolves, technology evolves. 20 years ago, the idea of having gates into Bear Creek was not on anybody's radar screen, and I try to look forward 20 or 25 years and say, what is it that our guests, our residents, our visitors are going to want from an experience here? And I think the reality is, because we have the natural assets, I come back to yours, only as good as your mountain, and we have the best mountain, I think we actually have an obligation not only to Telluride, but to the advancement of the sport, winter sports, is to be a leader and push that, you know, and it's not going to come in a year or two or even 5, but in 10 or 20 years, when I think about Telluride as the best, it will be that experiential component. But I also think that ties back to Ron's point. The zoning is there to, in essence, finish or complete the vision of Mountain Village, and I think that's got to be a part of the overall experience of Telluride. So I mean, I wanted to address that, Robert, first. And if you'd ask me your question again, so I can answer that and be polite.
No, that was the answer.
All
yes,
right.
thank
Well,
you.
thanks.
Thank you. We've got a question at the microphone here.
Do you think the ski area and Mountain Village could do a better job at marketing regionally, so that we're the place where people from Breckenridge, from Vail, from the Wasatch come when they want a destination resort that's more local? The people that are in Montrose and Cortez and Durango, which are evolving communities, that they don't feel that Telluride's too snooty.
I do think that way. I think that as Telluride continues to evolve, the region has to come with us collectively. And in particular, I look at the Montrose Delta, Ophir, Rico. I think we have to think a bit more globally than just Telluride-centric. And as that evolves, what does that look like 10, 20, 30 years from now? Because I think the southwest corner of Colorado is going to become more popular for both people who want to have the quality of life that this region offers, but also as demographics shift. This is a bit of a refuge, I think a higher quality of life than a lot of other places. Having spent a big chunk of my career in the I-70 corridor, I don't really want to see us aspire to attract people that are maybe using that resource on a daily basis, and I'm being polite about talking about the Front Range of Colorado. The guys from Ski Utah were here. I hosted them last Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it was an interesting point. If you think about it, we're about 3 hours and 45 minutes from Salt Lake, and we're 6 hours from Denver. And I thought for April Fool's joke, one of my lines was going to be that Telluride had decided to join Ski Utah. Because in some ways, our market, there is an opportunity, and I think it's a good point, there is an opportunity that our market is also to the west of us, not just to the east of us. So I think that is an interesting piece, but I also see and I use this in a positive way, the remoteness of Telluride and Southwest Colorado is also a benefit because it attracts a different kind of visitor here than what I'm seeing, I'm seeing out of Salt Lake and that I-80 corridor to Park City and what we're seeing on I-70. And I think we have to maintain the uniqueness and the nature of what Telluride is and what it's offered over the years, and not, as they say, let's not mess that up.
Robert, can I say a couple things? One is the uniqueness of being remote. Our daughter lives in Denver, Alex, and she says, I can drive to Telluride, it takes me 6 hours, whatever, and ski there for 2 days and drive back to Denver and get twice as much skiing in as going to I-70 because I'm standing in line all the time. So the kids come here because, you know, I mean, we're all locals, and I get kind of grumpy if I have to stand in line for more than about 3 minutes. Like, how's all these people come from, you know? So Bill's right. That is a very unique thing that we have here. And then the second point is what he talked about, the mountain and how difficult it was. And I look back at my dad skiing, and then me skiing, my son skiing, and now my granddaughter skiing, and every generation they get better and better and better. And my 8-year-old granddaughter, I got about 1 or 2 more years, and I'm not going to be able to keep up. And that's the greatness of having this mountain, because these kids here are incredible.
Can I make it? You know, my wife and I were able to travel a lot, and we didn't know anything about skiing, but what we wanted to learn is what makes all these great resorts, ski resorts in the world tick. What have they got? So, and this is going back before we even came here. And so we would travel to Europe, and we would go to all the big name brands that you all have heard and spend 2 or 3 days looking at their, once we learned how to ski, we'd go skiing there, but looking at their villages and what made them so neat. And then I ended up going and living in Vail when Vail was just a small Vail village. There was no Lions Head village. There was nothing else around there. There wasn't development up and down the I-70 corridor, which I was partly responsible for. But what has happened when you go back, and so we kept going back to these resorts, the great ones in the world, in North America and in Europe. And what we found out that was really, to me, the most disturbing thing. When I went to Vail Village, it was like that. And then 3, 4, 5 years later, it was like that. And then 3 or 4 or 5 years, it was like that. And then pretty soon, now, I can say that when you come down from the foot of Vail Pass and run into the community, it goes for 50 miles along that interstate. We got to prevent that. And when you become popular, there'll be a developer come along like me and try to talk this community into building another town out here somewhere, you know, a few miles away. And what's happened to these great resorts in the world, they all were like that when we started looking at them, and they're all like this. And I won't see that because I won't live that long, but I don't want my kids to see it, and I don't want my grandkids to see it, because my whole family feels like Telluride is our family roots, and I agree with that. But there's nothing that destroys the feeling of where you're at than too much. And that's happened all over the world, because popular places, people want to be there, and then there's economies. You can go to these popular places. If you get the zoning and build property, people will come along and pay a lot of money for it. And so we did set a limit on the population here. And if we would just stick to it, but it's only going to take the county commissioners to make one fatal mistake, and that is giving some developer that'll talk them into building a community out on one of these mesas, and which they can't do right now. And the minute that happens, just once, then here comes another developer with these attorneys saying, well, you did it there, what about me? And that's what happens with developers and their attorneys and whatnot in these very popular areas. And we have the opportunity. No other community in the world that I know of sat down before they started and drew a line around a certain amount of land and said, okay, what are we going to do with this? We did that in this community. And then we went in and had the government, the county, put it into land use legislation. So it's there. Can the next county commissioners that are elected change that? Just like that. But they can't change it if we let them. They can only change it if we let them, I mean. And that's the biggest problem. It's not that we're going to be successful. We're already successful. It's not that we're going to be #1 in the world if we do those few things. We will be #1 in the world. But then all of a sudden you're #1 in the world. Other people are going to want to be here. They're going to want to do things. We're going to have to just have the restraint and say, no, you can come and visit.
Thanks, Ron. Okay, we're going to hit question here and then to the microphone, and then we have time for probably one more question after that. So thank you.
Annie Savith. I want to thank all of you for what you do and have done to build Telluride and to give us the opportunity to be here. And Ron, I never thought you'd be a no-growther. And I am really pleased to hear that when you and Robert Savith worked on it when he was mayor on the TREP agreement, that it's still alive. I think it's wonderful. I have a question regarding what you said earlier about the mountain expansion as of what is left to be done.
Is that a question to me?
Yes.
Hey, let me just, this Ani girl, when we three sit up here, this whole thing was so many people, as you would know, did it. Ani was she was the first ski school director, female in the United States. So you can look out there, but just one quick story with Ani. She is the first person, now there's Women Weeks all over the world. She was the first that came up with the idea of Women's Week, swear to God. And she came into Ron and I and she said, I got this cool idea, we're going to bring women there and teach them to ski. And we went, okay. The very first Women's Week, Ani, you would vouch, we had one woman. Now look at it. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, it's just...
Well, I'll try to answer that. There's within what's been approved by the Forest Service is our master plan. There is a lot of trails that were on that master plan that haven't been built. And most of it is in the Lift 9 area. There's a lot of terrain there, and there's some incredible trails there, but there's not very many based on the size of that pod. There's one lift that was approved then, which has not been built, to go up into Palmyra Peaks area. And that has got a lot of potential for a lot of skiing. And they're skiing up there now because they walk up, they hike up. And you can, we were sitting up at that great restaurant up there and just watching these people ski down through this. They didn't do that when we first started. That's right. That was, these young people today, a 22-year-old skier today that's been skiing for quite a while, it's amazing what they can do compared to what these guys could do. Not me, but these guys. And they were incredible skiers, still are. No, maybe not Billy. No.
Okay, let's go to the microphone here. Go ahead, Johnny.
I think Ron talked about zoning, and I think of Senior Mahoney, and I've got about 3 miracles. When we started the ski resort in '72, the Forest Service would not let us put, it goes to Ron's point, any lifts on the front hillside. '72. We put them all on the back hillside. The miracle, in my eyes, in a lot of respects, was Mr. Mahoney. when did you draw the special use permit, 68? Billy Mahoney, when we're looking at the top of Palmyra, why he did it shows what a great visionary is. He drew the special use for the ski resort up the front hillside, up Gold Hill to the top of Palmyra Peak, down behind Bald Mountain. And I'll tell you, in 1972, that was plumb nuts. And he did it. And I'll tell you, but for Billy doing that.
Thank you, Johnny. To the microphone, please.
Hi, Jonathan Abram. One of the things that attracted us here was the local community and the sort of feeling that there is such a vibrant local environment, unlike some ski resorts where you feel like everybody's kind of come to ski and then leaves. What would you do, having in mind the goal of not expanding forever, the forever donut problem, what would you do to create infrastructure so that people can live here who work here? What specific things remain in the plan that haven't been done that town and the village can focus on to make happen for that so that we have more affordable and employee housing?
Okay, is that to me or?
I don't care. Whoever's got an answer.
You want to?
Well, for me, I stutter a little bit because I think of all the opportunities missed. That said, there are still terrific, they're talking about tiny houses now, whatever the hell those minor things are. You could go back in with some of the land that's available within the proximity for employees, which in my opinion is probably the number one thing of everything is this employee housing base. So from a simple standpoint, I keep thinking of all the opportunities lost for employee housing because it's land constrained. And I wish I came up with a great answer, but what I hear finally is in this community, and it's back to when George, I told you how the community is listening now. For 40 years, a lot of what we had to deal with was not solutions that don't do this. I'm seeing that there's a real sense in this community. For maybe, there's a lot of people concerned about it, so I can't give you the specific land thing, but I will say after 45 years, I'm seeing a general interest politically and from people's standpoint that there's opportunities. And I have some that I know of that are in the immediate region that would have to be that. But I think the answer now, it takes a collective will. And as corny as that sounds, I think the collective will is there now. And I think, probably guys like Bill and that really see, and Chuck, that was kind of a round answer, but there's a collective want and desire now to do that.
May I?
Junior knows.
So I'm in the process right now of doing an addition on my house in San Miguel County. And I built a house 5 years ago or 6 years ago in Montrose County. And the difference in cost is just incredible. And to make anything affordable here, the governments and everybody's going to have to get together, and they're going to have to make some sacrifices that allow us to build some housing here that is affordable. Because I can tell you right now, I'm going to frame it, I'm going to do all the excavation myself, and I'm going to do all the finish work, and it's a garage and 1,000 square feet of living space, and I can't do it for less than 200 a square foot myself. It's just, the cost here is so extreme. And if we want to get housing here for people, the governments and everybody's going to have to get together, and we're going to have to sacrifice in order to make it affordable for people who want to live here who don't make a lot of money.
And Junior, you tell me, a lot of that is just rules and regulations. It's
Yeah.
not just the cost of material, it's just the
I'm paying this fee and this and that and everything else, and I'm going to do this, but it's a struggle, and we have to come up with a plan with all the governments and the developers and everybody to say, okay guys, if we want to build housing here that's affordable for the average individual who works here, everybody's going to have to sacrifice and work together to make it happen, because it is really expensive to do anything here. And I'll give you a prime example. I built a house in Montrose. We have a water ski lake down there. My wife loves to water ski, so we did this thing. And I had to put a new roof on my garage. It's 900 square feet. And it's a flat roof. It's a torch down roof. And it cost $2,700 to have it redone. My addition on my house here is 750 square feet. It's basically flat, and the cost to build that roof from the exact same contractor in Montrose is $8,200.
Okay, we've got, oh, go ahead, Johnny.
But just one last point, and again, there's government people here and they do a wonderful job. But Ron will tell you more than anything, the mentality for a lot of years was exactions. If I give you a ski lift, Mr. Allred, we're going to exact this. And there's certainly a relationship between you can't let the big boy. But this exaction mentality has existed in this community, ski areas, for a lot of years. I'll give you X, but you got to exact this. And that goes right back to what Junior's saying there. So a lot of it is not land-based, it is, but it's kind of just exactly what he said.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got time for one last question, sir.
Appreciate that. I want to say that I appreciate Bill's anecdote because I have one for you myself. But I'd like to preface it by asking, what do you think is the possibility of getting the regional air carriers to come back to Telluride Airport? I have a family. I built Tramontana, a 5-bedroom condo, and I can get my kids and my children and my grandchildren here. My children and my grandchildren here once a year from Pennsylvania and Florida because it's so hard to get to. And when Frontier stopped flying out of Phoenix, it made it even tougher. So I'm just wondering why we haven't even had nobody's asked about that. Because it doesn't change the fact that we have a zoning situation here that's fortuitous. I love the lack of ski lines as much as everybody else. But I just find it so difficult, and my friends won't come either because it's so hard to get here. Montrose is fine, but often it's a difference between being able to fly into Telluride, like a lot of my friends fly into Aspen. They love to go in there, and they're there. But here, we're not there. They're here, but they're not there when they go to Montrose.
Bill, you want to take that one?
Well, I know that it's a point of a lot of discussion and topic within the Allred board, and I had a meeting last week, and they're looking at 3 operators with aircraft that are not part of a major airline, but people that have an aircraft that in essence the Allred would basically assume the aircraft for the winter season and be responsible for filling it and in essence guarantee them the operating cost, but they would assign the pilots and move it. And to your point, you would definitely look at that, and depending on how many aircraft you got, I think you would look at Phoenix and you would probably look at Denver direct into Telluride, and it's a larger seat aircraft than the old Beaches that flew in with whatever they are, 19 or 20 seats, bringing it in. The FAA also is working to create some funding and money to approve approaches because one of the things I've heard, and candidly, I think I've only flown into the Telluride Airport once in my life, but anytime we get a weather event here, the flight is diverted to Montrose, and that creates its own challenges because Montrose wasn't expecting to receive another aircraft, et cetera. But the FAA is working on improving approaches to provide more safety and certainty for aircraft in inclement weather coming in and departing from Telluride. So it's in the works. I'd be candid. It's not like a next year thing, but I think potentially it could be a 2 or 3 year piece. And the community and the board is really focused on trying to figure out the solution to bring service back, commercial service back to the airport here in Telluride.
Junior.
Dad, you haven't said a whole lot here. Do you have anything you want to tell those people out here about the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm glad you all showed up.
Anything else?
Well, I lived here 84 years, and I had to get out here this last December, and it just really saddened me, but that's life, you know, and it'll happen to every one of you, so enjoy it while you can.
Senior, thank you so much for coming. Ron, some last words?
One last comment. The community knows this, but maybe they haven't heard it, that starting in the beginning of all the resort and the airport and the gondola and ski trails and golf, you name it. Looking back on it, the beginning of our company was so fortunate that the mine closed, which was unfortunate for the community, and it was terrible for the community. But the one thing that happened, those people from the mining community were workers, hard workers, loyal, and wanted to stay in Telluride. And the only way they could stay here is to get another job, and the only job was building the resort. And these three were just three of a kind of a small army of those people. They were leading a lot of these different departments, but and this guy was the big leader of that whole movement. And everybody respected these guys because they worked harder than the other people. And I don't know where the heck we would have got all these people to come here and build all this, because there was a lot of people here that didn't work. Awful lot. So it was. So I just want to say thanks to these people from the mining era and all the other mining people here.